Grand risings again, beautiful souls. Um, just me enjoying this lovely forest again right now. Um, so I wanted to talk to you about something today, um, and it's kind of a word that I've been thinking about recently, and that word is rewilding. Now, usually when we think about rewilding or we hear something about rewilding, we usually hear it in relation to nature, don't we? Kind of letting the land grow, letting it grow wild again, letting rivers kind of create their own kind of courses and paths through nature, letting the animals kind of return to where they belong. And that's generally what we kind of think about when we hear about rewilding, forestry projects and things like that, isn't it? Hence why I'm in a forest. But yeah, kind of rewilding, and that's what kind of most people think about. But what if, the word rewilding wasn't just for forests, and it wasn't just for animals, and it wasn't just for nature? What about it's for families too? I've been thinking about this, because somewhere along the way, modern life just kind of domesticated us, didn't it? Just like we did animals, with cats and dogs. It's kind of domesticated us. Schedules replaced the seasons, didn't they? School bells replaced intuition. And many of us, without a meaning either. Getting cut off from the rhythm that kind of once held us long ago. I think again, and it's kind of this system that's kind of indoctrinated us. This system that's it's everything. Sorry, it's kind of a little bit overgrown here. It's this system that's actually done it to us, hasn't it? Or these systems over the course of many years. It's tamed us, hasn't it? It's domesticated us. And I think, rewilding the family isn't about rejecting the world. It's far from that. I think rewilding as a family is about going back to nature, remembering who we are. I think that's kind of what that kind of represents to me now. It's a slow morning walk, getting up to watch the sunrise. It's learning under the stars, not under a roof or under fluorescent lights like you would do in a classroom. Sitting outside and mapping the stars out and trying to pick the constellations out, isn't it? Things like that. It's traveling, it's walking, it's seeing new places. It's that does it. And crying and laughing together as a family, getting messy, painting with Dylan. And Dylan loves his slime, so it's getting messy with his slime and his goo and his gels and everything like that. And it's like that. And we don't have to apologize if we get messy, because that's kind of the nature of having the fun, having the experience, isn't it? Kind of like what you see in a lot of movies, and they're on the potter's wheel and they start throwing clay at each other and things like that. That's part of the fun, it's part of the experience, it's part of the memories that you make. And it's trusting that children don't need constant control to grow strong. We don't control Dylan. It's not like he's in a school environment. We don't tell him what to do, when to do it, when he can put his hand up to go for a toilet break, or even if he can go to a toilet break. He doesn't have a pass to go out in the corridor to go for a toilet break. Nothing like that. We don't control him. And, he needs that to grow strong. He needs the freedom to figure out and decide what he wants to do. And it's the freedom of doing that's bringing on such an amazing, beautiful soul in our child. They need the freedom, don't they? They need connection, and not just connection, you know, to other people and other children. They need connection with themselves, connection with this planet, connection with the ground, the earth, the stars, the forests, the oceans. You know, they need that connection, that sense of wonder, because that stimulates the brain so much more than just sitting at a desk in a classroom. You know, they need to see that you're free as well, because, you know, Dylan looks at us and, you know, he can see what an amazing life we live. And, you know, he meets a lot of children, like currently on the site where we are at the moment. You know, the children are on half term, or they're just, it was I think the children in Scotland were here last week. From Scotland, I should say, were here last week. And, you know, they're looking at Dylan's life, and Dylan is explaining what we do, and, you know, that we travel full time and we go to all of these amazing places and we do all of these amazing things. And you can just see their faces like, wow, I wish I could do that. Oh, I wish we could do that. Even the parents, you know, they kind of, wow, what an amazing thing you do. Even though you can see that hint of jealousy in there, because they would love to do, you know, live like we do. But the truth is, anybody can, really. Anybody can. And I think, you know, our children need to see that in us. We need to show them the way, don't we? Like that song, you know, let the children, you know, show them the way. We need to set that example to show them that they can be free, that they can do what they want. They can have the freedom to explore, to play, you know, to just be themselves. I mean, after all, they are children. And, you know, we are raising children. We're not raising robots. We're not raising machines, are we? We're raising children, human beings, you know. So, you know, they need to see that they can be free. And, you know, they follow our examples, don't they? You know, for us, it looked like stepping away from the old systems. And Dylan's understanding this now. Dylan's understanding the systems that keep people caged, that keep people in a state of fear, division, hatred. You know, he's seeing this. You know, he's seeing the systems, you know, the banking systems, you know, asking people why they want their own money out the bank, and, you know, in some cases not letting them have their own money that's in the bank unless the bank deems it's okay for you to take your own money out. Dylan is seeing this and he's understanding this. And, you know, he looks at me and says, you know, we don't want to live in that society. And, you know, even Dylan says, I don't want to live like that. Why do we have to be such a caged animal, he says. And, you know, because, and it is getting very much like that for a lot of people that are kind of sleepwalking through this this phase in life, and, you know, not really seeing the bigger picture. You know, they're still going, okay, you can control me as much as you want, you know, but on the flip side of that, there are more families out there like us and like a lot of other nomad families that are, you know, no, absolutely not. You are not going to control us anymore. You are not going to take our money anymore. You are not going to tax us until we've got nothing left. You are not going to make me work till I've got no time left to spend on this planet and enjoy what time I have left. You know, you are not going to tell me where I can and can't go. You are not going to tell me what I can and can't eat. You know, there are a lot of more families waking up to this, and it is beautiful to see that there are so many families now that are waking up and actually seeing the truth, the lies, the distortion, you know, the negative frequency that is just tying everybody down and wearing everybody out and literally sucking the life out of everybody. You know, and it's for us, it's, you know, it didn't sit right with us, and it hasn't done me for a very, very long time now. Sam's relatively new to kind of coming around to the bigger picture. She's kind of, obviously we've been together now for 14, 15 years. So she knows I've always had that about me, and I've always questioned everything, and I've always kind of sidestepped and got away from as many systems as I can. And Sam slowly started coming around, I think when COVID hit, and I think that was the kind of propulsion for most families when COVID hit. That, you know, freedom. You know, everybody's freedom got taken away, didn't it? And you know, who gives that right? Who's got the right to take away a human being's freedom? Anybody's freedom? No one. And you know, that was kind of the catalyst for a lot of nomadic families now that have pulled away from all systems completely. You know, it's choosing a life that feels honest. It's choosing a life that feels right. Right for you. You know, it might not necessarily be the same lifestyle we live, but choosing the life that's right for you. You know, that's the big pointer. You know, people look at us and you know that they would hate me. They hate to stay in somebody else's, a stranger's house. You know, or some people might hate to be cooped up and travel around in a van. We love what we do. Van lifers love what they do. There are families that go and live on a cooperative piece of land at a homestead eco kind of school, if you like. They're in Thailand, they're everywhere. You know, their children are experiencing amazing things in life, and it's having that, you know, you want to give your children the best of life, and you of course want the best life too. You know, you're away from all the stresses, the strains, the arguments, the everything, you know. And it's, you know, even if it looks a little bit different from, as I say, from what others expect. You know, nobody expected us to be doing this, and we didn't even expect to be doing this. We knew we wanted to be free. We wasn't quite sure how to do it, and it wasn't until we was in a home ed group, and someone said, you know, what do you do? And someone just said, oh yeah, we house and pets it. And so we was kind of inquisitive and asked what it was. They sent us a website link to look through. We ended up signing up to that website. This is 2 years ago. And we haven't looked back since. We really haven't looked back since. It's given us the freedom to do whatever we want. You know, we spent the first year traveling the UK. In our second year now, we're in the UK. We're actually about to launch our own company, which is kind of doing the same sort of thing as the website that we're registered on. And you know, and that, well then, once that's live, feed us the income to keep traveling. And you know, we've made it so that, you know, people that join our website and want to house sit, or they need people to look after their pets while they're traveling and having their happy time, there is a way for them to earn an income on the side as well. And it's a great income, because, you know, we've looked at it from a soul point of view and know that people still need to have that that monetary value still to buy food and things. I know you can grow it and stuff, but not a lot of people have got, you know, experience or the land, or you know, they know how to kind of grow your own food and live off the land and things like that. They might not have the space to do that. So, you know, you still need money to get by and live and buy necessities and things like that. So, you know, we've made that possible with what we're doing. So I'm just going to switch my phone over because my phone tends to go a little bit dark and I'm not sure whether you can actually see me or not. So, you know, that's just kind of one of the main things really, why we wanted to kind of open this up to other people as well. And so other people can see it, they can live this life too. And, you know, everybody can do whatever they want. You know, you haven't got to do what we do. You haven't got to do what everybody else does. You can, so I'm just going to have a bit of a rest. You can do what, you know, anybody really wants you, what you really want to do. It's entirely up to you. And that's, you know, that's it. It's what you want to do, isn't it? You know, it's our life. It's not always tidy. You know, we travel consistently. So, you know, our stuff, we've just bought 3 new backpacks. So our stuff's in backpacks going around. So, you know, we have stuff in different places. You know, there's Dylan keeps picking up things from every sit we go to. We have to keep telling him, you know, you can't take things with you. Because we constantly travel, you can't keep taking things. And, you know, he wants to bring his Xbox or his PlayStation or whatever, you know, and he can't carry that around consistently with him. And we have to keep telling him, but he's now come round to the idea that he can't do that. So no, we just do lots of amazing things when we're out and about, and it gets him off of his computer. Because like some of you might know, when they're on Fortnite or Roblox or whatever, they seem to argue and start to stress with each other. And now, he don't have that, and that's great. So I think, so I just got a message come through. So I think maybe, the situation is whatever you make it. I think what you need to do is question how do I fix my family? Maybe you're not broken, but what I'm trying to say is, how can you make it better? And I think fix is the wrong word. How can I make this better? Or how can we live a better life? Not just for kind of you as adults, but for your children. How do we give them a better life than what we're currently giving them? How do we give them more freedom? And how do we have more freedom to do what we want, pick up and go whenever we want? I think that's the thing. And once you return to yourself, look inside, figure out who you are, figure out what you want to do. And once you kind of do that, it all does literally start dropping into place automatically for you. It really does. Return to presence, return to wonder, return to your rhythm that we all once had. Return to the trust, because there's so much untrust out there at the moment. Nobody trusts anybody. World, should be built on trust. Trust is earned. It's always earned. Don't get me wrong. You don't just trust blindly. Trust is always earned. But there are so many things and narratives and storylines and systems out there that make you distrust everything, isn't there? Distrust the government, distrust the educational system, distrust the government, distrust this person, distrust that person. There is so much distrust out there in the world right now. What would life be like if you could actually trust everybody? Once you've earned their trust, once they've proved that they can be trusted, wouldn't it be great to be able to trust everybody and live in harmony and peace with freedom and cooperation between people instead of rivalry? No rivalry, just everyone working together, creating things together, inventing things together, a big cooperational kind of world, where people aren't competing with each other and things like that. It'd be amazing world that would be to live in. We don't need to keep taming ourselves to fit the world that seems to forgot that we are wild. We came into this world generations and generations and generations ago, living off the land, hunting, gathering, before that cave, like the Neanderthals, and you can keep going backwards and back. And, we were wild creatures, and, we have been tamed, haven't we? Over the years, over the thousands, over the millennia, we have been tamed. Just like you would train your dog. You would train it to be obedient, train it to walk with you, train it to, kind of fetch. That's what we've been trained to do, isn't it? Be that obedient, good dog, really. We don't need to, we need to forget that. We need to remember where we came from. That's what we need to remember. We can grow together. We can grow wild together. We just need to remember that. And, really look, I know you think I might sound silly, but if you actually sit and think about it, and think about the freedom that you could have, that we once did have before all of these systems and everything else. We were free people once. I think it's time we rose up and be free again, don't you? That's it for today anyway. Take care, guys. Love and light to you all. And I will speak to you all tomorrow. Look after yourself and look after each other. Bye-bye.